Hello and welcome to our first episode of Bollywood with Brits. I am Jumana and I'm going to be the host for the podcast. Today we have Colin with us who has watched his first ever Bollywood movie. Would you like to name it?
Yeah, so we watched Chak de India.
Yeah, that was awful. I might need to repeat it for people to understand. So it was Chak de India, by the way. So the first question I have for you from the movie was the simple one, right? What was your biggest takeaway about Chak de India?
So I think for me, it was the slapping. I really found it funny
Wow.
how the Sikh lady just went around slapping everybody. I kind of liked the way as well that even though the slapping was a main component, that it was actually a key part of the plot. The way that he was trying to get her to calm down, but then when they played Argentina, there was that whole bit where it was like, actually they're playing rough, we should play rough, and it kind of reminded me of like 90s football in the UK, where there were a lot of players who were well known for basically beating each other up.
Whoa.
And it's kind of weird because nowadays you think of footballers as people that get tapped and they suddenly fall on the floor and they start crying. But back then, people were just beating each other up, and it was good to see that kind of thing again. I guess, it just reminded me of that.
I particularly enjoy the Argentina match because it shows ruthless Shah Rukh Khan, for whom winning is all that matters. So if you think that it was shot in Britain, a movie like that was shot in Britain, what were the bits you would think is different to what it was?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess for me, the way that it was shot, it was like very much about the team, and I think a British movie would focus more about the individual players and their journeys. So less about they come together and then they have to figure out how to be a team, and more about the journeys that each individual player has taken, and then when they get into the team. And I think the reason why is because we tend to think more about, I guess, like the personal journey that someone has taken, and it's like the idea that regardless of your background, you can kind of find a way out of it and end up into this kind of more national stage, which I think there were a few things in there around kind of like, I think it was like Preeti was dealing with her boyfriend or fiance or whoever it was, being a bit mean about his career being first, and then there was also another player who had a was it like father-in-law or something like that, was saying that they can't do something.
Yeah. Vidya.
Yeah, so I feel like there are parts to that movie which were like that, but at the same time I feel like it would have been very much focused on like one or two people and their kind of struggle to get out of their environment and get into that national team. So probably less like the team is a thing and how the teams happen, and more like how they got onto the team.
Interesting take, because we do have movies like that which focus on individual journey, but to me it was always Chak de India, as in the team building part more than the journey. But yeah, that's fair. They did cover bits and sections of that. So brings me to one interesting thing I want to ask you. So when you said that his Preeti's boyfriend was he put his career before hers.
Like cricket player or something.
Yeah, so because it was cricket, right? Cricket holds a huge importance in India. So did you know? So what is the national game of India according to you?
Well, now I know it's hockey.
How did you know that?
Because I watched a movie that told me it was hockey.
Yeah, and what is your national game?
I mean, our national game would be football, but I'd say there's a bunch of them. Depends on who you talk to, right?
Yeah, but it is cricket, based on books.
Yeah, it could be cricket, it could be rugby.
Okay, so the next thing I want to ask is, do you think British women's sports movie would get such mainstream attention? And do you know any that could be closest to this, or just reflect the same dynamics somewhere?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a team dynamic movie, but I know that we had a movie in the early 2000s that was quite well received and hit the mainstream. It kind of has an India connection as well, because it's about a British Indian girl who wants to play football, called Bend It Like Beckham. And the whole kind of thing around that was that she was fighting the kind of culture of, growing up in the UK, but then the culture at home and kind of like how she did that. And it randomly, I think that's like Keira Knightley or something like that before she made it big. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But yeah, I don't think we've had any actual kind of like sports team movies. So this is, yeah.
So Bend It Like Beckham, you were suggesting Victoria Beckham?
No. David Beckham.
Okay, yeah. The husband,
the one
right?
that plays football. Okay. The one who actually deserves to be famous.
Oh, come on. The other thing is way too enticing, isn't it? Anyway. So with that, when you talked about team dynamics and stuff, brings me to another question, that what do you think about the actual team dynamics? And would you see a vast cultural difference to it? I mean, if it would have been in Britain, it would be completely different team dynamics.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing about sports teams in the UK is that they are made out of people, well, national teams anyway, are made out of people that have been in other teams. If we were going to use the football thing again, that would be things like, somebody plays for Chelsea, someone plays for like Manchester United, and then they are selected to play on the national team. So you've got a bunch of people who are, I guess, like, all at the kind of peak of their careers and stuff like that. Then they all kind of fight for a chance to be in this team. One thing I found really interesting was that you had the kind of like two people from a state, or is it two people or one? I can't remember. Was it one person per state?
Yeah, one person per state.
And I found that really good, because it was like, there's that part where he has to kind of convince everybody to stop playing at their state like representation bit and to kind of think of themselves as a national team. And I think that was an interesting dynamic, because I guess, if you've got people who are, as I say, like playing for different football teams around, and they all come together to play on a national team, they've chosen to be part of that national team, and it's like that kind of, they want to be doing that whole kind of thing. Whereas like with the kind of state level stuff, you've got people who are so used to being kind of like in that state bit, and then they're having to kind of figure out how to be that national team itself, which obviously has that bit where he's kind of like, what's your name, and everybody kind of starts saying that they're like representing this state, and then he has to kind of get them to realise that the correct answer is to say that they're actually part of the Indian team and not that individual thing. But I actually kind of like the quota thing, because I think it is an interesting way of making sure that everybody's got an equal share in what they can do. Because I do think that the UK, as much as it's, got that means that you can kind of like get to the top of your game and then become, part of that national squad, it does mean that people might not necessarily get opportunities because of the differences in kind of like levels or exactly,
opportunities basically.
Yeah, exactly. But also I think there is that bit where if somebody is really like good at the game, and then they have to fight, they have to like make a team with people who are also good at the game, then they're going to be fighting this kind of like I need to be better than you thing. And I think, if you just got people who are like the best in their state coming together to represent, the entire kind of country and stuff like that, they're going to not necessarily be comparing themselves on the same scales. Yeah. So I think it kind of makes sense to me that you do it that way. But yeah.
Yeah, so that quotas things is a very well talked about thing in India, that we should give it to deserving. But I like this. There's a small bit where this person comes from very East India, and this the guy who is doing the registration, he tells them, "Oh God, we have got people from Eastern ends as well. Thank you for coming. You are our guests," and they are unhappy about it. And then he says that, "Why are you unhappy?" And she. So having quotas to justify that, you're giving equal opportunity to all parts and everybody gets a representation at least. Which brings me to the next question. What do you odd about the statehood part of it? Because from what I understand in this Western world, countryhood is an element and not statehood individually. So were you expecting that, states are that significantly different in India from each other?
I mean, in the UK, we still have differences in counties, right? Obviously, India's massive compared to the UK, so I was not necessarily surprised that, there would be a vast difference between people who are like at the extreme ends of things. I think, the thing that was interesting to me was that within the team there was some biases and racism, which I found kind of, interesting that they approached it in that sense, where I think it was like two players who were from like, was it South or East India, with the kind of like she had was it like elephant riding?
Jharkhand.
Yeah. And and then like one of the players is just like, oh my god, and like started calling them names, like, and just that whole aspect of it was a bit kind of wow, okay. Like, because I guess in the UK, even though we have like, our counties and stuff like that, and there's a bit of a kind of like, friendly competition, shall we say, between basically everybody in London, because nobody likes London. And we just forget the rest of the UK exists because everything happens in London, right? This is how it works. But, there is that bit where, for the most part, it's not necessarily aggressive, like actual meanness. It's more just playful banter, essentially. But, that being said, I think, the actual kind of like way that they handled those different states and stuff was quite interesting, right? Because to go back to the quote things, like the representation, the fact that you can see all those different types of things, and it kind of shows the fact that like India is quite a diverse place is nice. I think if you were to look at most of the UK, it would basically be like, okay, these people call a bread roll something completely different to these people, and these people have like a slightly different accent to those people, but that's it, really. Like, there's no real, kind of difference.
Yeah, because of the geographical area also, right? As you said, it's not like huge. And also, although I understand the accents and everything are different in different counties, as you say, however, the language is still English. In India, every state has a separate language. So
yeah, I mean, you could argue that some of the languages that we speak are not the same thing. So, I mean, like, you've got Scottish, which ultimately is Gaelic, I guess, is actually the correct term for it. And, I think people think that, the UK is just England, and really it's not. There's a lot of kind of, different cultures that make up, the area. And, like, I think if you were to kind of then apply that to that kind of like team, the Scottish person might not necessarily speak the same way that the English person was, and I think people just assume everybody speaks this kind of like Queen's English, but it's really not like that at all.
I thought Gaelic is only in Irish people, Northern Ireland or Ireland. Is Scottish roots also Gaelic?
Yeah. So I think it's like Ireland, Scotland and bits of Cornwall as well, all Celtic, and that's kind of like what that language
But then
is.
Scottish people do speak English all the time.
Yeah, they speak English, Scots, which is a kind of like dialect, I guess you could say, and then also there's Gaelic as well. So
they do speak Gaelic inside Scotland?
Yeah.
Really? That's news.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting a little bit from the cultural and geographical aspects to it to characters. What did you think about Kabir Khan? Is he an inspirational leader to you, or was he like a horrifying technical manager to you? As he said, I'm the only hooligan in this, and there has to be no other person like that. So how did you think about the character Kabir Khan?
Yeah, I found him interesting. I think, he's definitely firm. I really liked it when there was that bit early on where like certain players were being a bit too kind of like not teamworky, and he was out. Also, like I think it was when Preeti turned up and she was a little bit late, and he's like, "Yeah, good luck," And I like that. I think the that firmness, that kind of like I'm not going to take anything from anybody kind of thing is good. But then at the same time, he's quite inspirational. Obviously, I know you love the 70 minutes speech.
Oh,
but,
wow.
There is that bit where, it's just like being able to mix that kind of like attitude with also being able to build people up is quite nice. And, he was able to also identify people's weaknesses and turn those into strengths. So with the slapping thing, and the fighting bit and all that kind of jazz, and using that against Argentina, but also like understanding that, the two, I'm going to call them strikers, but I think they're called forwards, aren't they?
Centre forwards.
Yeah, they didn't work necessarily too well together, and it was that whole bit of like, okay, so, Australia are going to assume that we're going to do this stuff, and then actually like using that to get what he needed from it. And I found like his whole character as a redemption arc was quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, when you talk about using weaknesses, I really like the point where, he knows when to give up. So when he goes to Bindya Nair and he says that, okay, how to lose a man-to-man marking, only you know. Mm-hmm. So he gave up in front of somebody, but then he made that he just changed that for her. Then she became like the best team bonding glue and stuff like that. And of course, 70 minutes, it just stays with me. If I'm going to do something significant, if I reread that in my mind, it just works out. That's the magic. So as I get goosebumps when I talk about 70 minutes, I want to ask you if you have had any emotional goosebump jump moments where, it stays with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the biggest kind of like emotional swing was probably the redemption arc bit. I think, as I said, like the way that he was treated was probably a little bit more shocking to me than I would have anticipated, because no one's been driven out of their house losing a match before. So I think that, I mean, I know you want me to say the 70 minutes thing, right?
No, not really.
But I feel like it was a nice moment of it. It was a nice crescendo of the whole kind of like building the team thing. But I think for me it was the bit where like, he's come back home and everybody's like, hey, like we can let you have your house back, and like we like you again, basically. That was a nice way to end the movie. Although, the kid who's like rubbing the word traitor off of his thing, and then he gives him the hockey stick. I don't think that kid deserved that hockey stick.
Oh, come on. This is the whole with him part, right? The kid starts with like, Father, I want to see who the traitor is, and then in the end, he's the person who's rubbing it off. He deserves the hockey stick. But of course, it's a matter of opinions if you deserve the hockey stick or not. While we've talked about the plot a little bit, character building and all those things, I wanted to talk about the musical journey with you. I know you're particularly interested in music, so this is like an early 2007 movie. So how did you think about the music taste, or how did you think about the beats and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely of its time. Like that late 80s kind of weird mix of like, I don't know, it's like everything had to have this kind of interesting, slightly drum and bassy-esque kind of bit to it. But yeah, I think like the music itself was quite nice. I definitely ended up with the main theme stuck in my head, which is a very weird thing to have because it's in a language I don't know. But it worked, and I found myself humming it for a good couple of days after watching the film.
You want to hum it for us now?
No. I'm not ready to perform. But I mean, I think one of the things that was also interesting was that you explained to me that, in sports games now, that's a theme that people bring out to kind of get the crowd going. And
Sometimes.
kind of made me think about kind of what we have as well. Because I don't think the UK really has like a specific cross-sport kind of theme. So like football has like 3 lines on my shirt and all that kind of just like that, but that's a very English thing. That's not, for the UK. And it's kind of like the only time that we really have themes that will be used for a, cross-sport thing is more when we're playing certain countries. And these are themes that aren't necessarily, made for movies. These are themes that have like been in movies that's kind of helped spread the thing and set the context, but they're not actual themes that have been composed. I think like maybe the closest one that we've got is like the Dam Busters theme. So that's, I don't even know what year Dam Busters came out, but it was like a film about when we had some bombs that we dropped in World War II that blew up dams. And whenever we play the Germans, we have a thing where we sing that because we have to remind them that, however many generations ago that we did a thing, the same thing where we say, it's like 2 World Wars and 1 World Cup. Even though that happened in 1966, it's still a thing that we bring out just to annoy them. And they don't care, but it's what we do, right? So I think, like having a theme from a film made for a film that is then kind of used across a whole thing to bring, a country together is quite a nice thing.
Cool. Now I'm tempted to hear that. But this brings us to the end. I think you have done quite well. You have watched the movie and actually understood it, which is which feels like a win somehow. Did you like it enough to recommend it to somebody?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it was... when someone tells you it's like a sports movie, there's always this kind of anticipation that it's going to be very dry and it's going to be about someone's determination to do something. But I found it quite fun. As I say, the slapping bit was nice. It was a lot of comic relief for me to see somebody, instead of just having like an argument or whatever, just go and that was great. But also I just think like the actual story itself, the redemption arc bit itself was good. Like it's not like I guess more kind of American style sports movie where someone messes up and then there's a lot of like interpersonal relationship stuff. This is just this person has to achieve a goal and goes out of their way to take this group of state level players and turns it into a country team that actually kind of go against the odds to win things. So yeah, definitely would recommend people watch it.
Thank you for doing that. So this brings us to the end of our episode 1 of watching Bollywood with Brits. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think. Thank you.